Hi everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for watching and welcome back. One of my viewers asked me a question that could potentially ignite a little firestorm, and probably will, but that's okay. I'm a big boy. The question being, when you're carrying concealed, do you have an opinion when it comes to carrying concealed with a live round in the chamber or not? Now, I already know that there are a lot of people out there in law enforcement, in military, there's trainers, there's people at your gun range, your local gun store, people sitting on the couch, and keyboard commandos, and every one of them have a different opinion. I know that there are some trainers out there that will say, if you do not have a round in the chamber, you should not be carrying a firearm, period. Okay. So let me throw something out at you here. Usually people ask questions like that because they're slightly uncomfortable. And that's where I think that the training system fails. It fails people today because I believe that there is a difference between training versus learning. If you have learned something, if you have learned an art, a craft, and you're comfortable with it, you know how it works, why it works, what action is going to cause this reaction. If you are trained only, so everything is by rote, that's where you can run into problems, where the rubber meets the road. And I'll give you a quick example. Flying. You can be, or think you are, the world's greatest pilot, but pilots are trained to fly in patterns. Everything that you go through in your little syllabus and curriculum is, 30-degree bank here, this altitude, this airspeed, this number here, this here, that there. Well, where pilots can get into trouble is when something breaks, something goes wrong. Many, many times in aircraft accidents, you will see where a pilot was trying to execute a standard pattern even though he had an engine failure. Or somebody gets upside down, they get into a spin, they've never experienced it before, they haven't learned how to recover, they haven't learned how that aircraft actually handles, and they're a smoking hole in the ground, and they die. So there is a difference, in my opinion, between training and learning. Now, when I worked in law enforcement, and this was my service revolver, every day it had a round in the chamber. Every time I carried it, there was a round in the chamber. Same thing went for my backup gun. And in our cruisers at that time, the shotgun and the rifle, they were in the trunk, they were loaded, round in the chamber, ready to go. But that boils back to not just sitting in a classroom, but actual training. And I think that what makes people uncomfortable today is because maybe they just had an online class about how to get your carry permit. They haven't really handled a weapon all that much. They've gone to the range, they've knocked a few holes in paper, but it's not really quite jiving. So that little bit of discomfort is your mind going, hey, I'm not completely comfortable with this. And that's okay, because I would much rather deal with somebody that knows that they don't know something than somebody that thinks that, they're God's gift of everything and they know everything on the face of the earth. So admitting that you don't know something is actually a good thing, because I'll tell you one thing, I know that there are a lot of people in the world that are a heck of a lot smarter than me. So when it comes to concealed carry, one of the things that you need to develop, in my opinion, is experience. You need to practice. You need to practice carrying, and it can be a completely inert firearm. If you want to take it to the extreme, not only can you have this thing completely empty, so there's nothing in the magazine, there's nothing in the chamber, but take the firing pin out, or the striker. Take the striker out. Carry it. Practice drawing it. The one problem that we have as humans is we have a tendency, because of ego, to only want to do the cool stuff, or what we think is cool. We don't want to do things that we consider to be mundane. Well, let me tell you this, practicing the mundane stuff makes you better. Somebody that is a fantastic basketball player got that way, not just because they had an innate talent for it, but because they went to the court several times a day, and all they did was they just dribbled the basketball, they took shots, they figured out, how it worked. Well, you need to figure out a time and set aside a time where you can safely practice doing everything, carrying, drawing from concealed carry, and getting intimately familiar with your firearm. And never ever forget the rules. The rule is always assume that this thing is loaded. Always. Always have it pointed in a safe direction. Don't point this thing at anything that you're not willing to destroy. And also know exactly what's behind what you're pointing at. Keep the finger off the trigger. The biggest safety is right here between your ears. So with that said, let me give you an example. Okay, on my carry gun right now, this is loaded. There's a round in the chamber. I am comfortable with it. I have every confidence that this thing is not going to go bang by itself. I have to activate that trigger in order for it to happen. Fair enough? Okay, but I've practiced it a lot. Now, where some people become uncomfortable is with a 1911 like this that's cocked and locked. What do you think can happen when your finger goes on that trigger? So you're drawing up, and if you've worked it out, so in your draw stroke, you're coming up, safety's coming off. What do you think is going to happen when that finger goes on the trigger, especially if the trigger is really light? It's just going to go like that. On a revolver, where you have a double action pull, it takes a lot more to make that happen. So anyway, when I have carried without a round in the chamber, it's with a Glock. Why? Because I was testing this. This is called a clip draw. And basically, if you can see it here, this is a back plate for Glock. And essentially what happens is this clip runs down the side of the Glock about like that. So this can go inside the waistband, it can go outside the waistband, but typically you would carry this inside the waistband. And Clip Draw says themselves, don't have a round in the chamber. I never violated that rule when I was testing it out, with good reason. Any piece of clothing, anything else can get bunched up, your shirt can get bunched up in there, and then when you go to put it in, what happens? It goes click. And especially if it's appendix carry, do you really want to shoot yourself? No. No sane person wants that. So that's when I would carry without a round in the chamber. What I'm advocating is practice. Practice your draw stroke and do it with absolute safety. Make sure that there's no ammunition in that room. And if you want to be uber safe, use a completely inert firearm, like a blue gun. That isn't even a firearm. Use a blue gun. Use a SIRT trainer, something like that. But do the mundane things. Practice drawing from concealment. For example, I will go ahead and I will reholster. And just to give you an idea, first and foremost, when I go to draw, am I going to do this, where I'm going to come in deliberately like this, like a chicken wing? No. And the reason for that is, if I pull this out, what's immediately going to happen? My hand is going to want to snap like this. So, as an example, if I'm like this, what happens? I've got this thing then pointed at my body when I'm pulling it out of the holster. You don't want to do that. So you want to get into the practice of when you're drawing, you keep your elbow like this, elbow comes back all the way, and where does that end up putting your hand? Put your hand right there. You get a good solid grip, you get that purchase on there, and then you begin to pull it out. And then when you're pulling it out, what happens? You're keeping the elbow back, and notice I'm not flagging any part of my body when I do this. So if this were to accidentally discharge, it's not going to hit me. And then immediately snap into this position. So it rotates out like this, and then we can marry the hands and go forward. But practice that. Use something as simple as your phone to actually videotape you as you're executing those draws. So you can do it slow. Do it really slow. For example, I know that this won't fit in the holster, but if you're chicken winging like this and you're jerking as you come up, or you're doing this, okay, obviously that's bad. Work on it. Slow. It really helps to put muscle memory and to put those neural pathways in there of how to do it correctly. So you're coming up, remember your fingers are always indexed so it's not on that trigger, and you come up, rotate, and then we're deciding what to do. And when it comes to deploying a firearm, the other thing I can say is, if you're ever in a fight, it's never going to go as planned. It's not going to go as practiced. If you get jumped by somebody, you're going to have a startle response, which is normal. And the startle response usually has people going like this. You immediately go into a crouch, and or you're throwing up like this in order to block. So no two situations are the same. And as you progress as a legally armed citizen when it comes to concealed carry, you're on a journey, and your learning should never stop. So anyway, I hope this helps and illuminates you a little bit. And if you have more questions, feel free to throw them at me. Or if you have criticisms, that's fine. Do that too. So until next time, thanks for watching. Everybody, have a good one, and be safe out there.